Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Community. Got my bestie here, Maria.
Hey.
Honestly, we're really working towards co-host status.
I'm inching my way there, guys. One day at a time.
One day at a time.
One fear at a time.
We're doing one of our content days. It's like a new thing our team's doing, which has been really fun. Ben on our team kind of gets us prepped and teed up for us to do kind of like a full day of content. So we do like reels if we have to, or if we have to, like podcast episodes. And so we have a few podcasts we're recording today, but we already did some fun stuff.
I know. It has been more fun than anticipated. Usually these things scare the hell out of me, but conquering my fears.
One fear at a time. This morning I signed Maria up to be a keynote at an event. So
for 200 people, guys.
It was 100 people.
Pray for me. Oh, thank God.
I love it. Actually, this kind of brings up like what we're talking about today, which is this idea of getting out of your own way when it comes to social, when it comes to like growing online and stuff, because and even like going to events and stuff. Like It's just so easy. We see it all the time with entrepreneurs who like end up making like all these excuses about like why they can't do something. And it really just is about like getting in the room, getting started, getting going. Yeah, we know that better than anyone. And whenever anyone's like, oh my God, like you guys are so brave to have started that, we're like, we just did it.
Yeah.
Like we just like, we're fearless in this approach. And even though a lot of it was scary and we were like worried and all of that, yeah, it's just been so interesting like what our journeys look like.
Yes, I will say self-proclaimed queen of getting in my own way. So I think I'm very qualified to teach on this subject because I've come a long way. And I feel like there's so many kind of like pieces at play when you're getting in your own way. Like there's the stories you're telling yourself, there's the experiences you've had, things people have said to you, like so many pieces at play. So give yourself some grace along the journey. It's not just like force yourself, into the deep end, jump off the cliff. But for me, it's been a lot of just like baby steps and like slowly pushing myself and finding the tools and support that make it easier and not like so stressful that it's all consuming.
Yeah. I think there's also like different types of people. You know what I mean? Like we talk about this between you and I all the time where there's like, I'm like very afraid of highway driving. Like I'm like, I am in my own way on getting anywhere because I'm like, yesterday I was late for a meeting and I had to take the highway and I was like, this is how I go to the Lord. Like I had a good run. And then once I got there, I was a speed demon. But it like, I'm in my own way on that kind of stuff. But like, anything business related, I'm kind of like, let's just do it. LFG, like, let's just make this happen. But then, you're a driving maven. You're like, do you drive way too close to other people? And
I'm weaving on that highway, boys.
I'm like,
look out.
I'm like, there's no need. We're in no rush. There's nowhere for us to be. But like with business stuff, sometimes you're a little bit more hesitant to do stuff than I am. So it's just interesting how like we can all have different like personality traits and stuff like that, but how it can kind of come to fruition in different ways.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about like self-discovery and a lot of these tools like human design, astrology, Enneagram, because they've shown me that so much. And I think for so long I would like shame myself about the things that I was in my own way about, like, public speaking or writing captions or whatever, and trying to do things the way other people were doing them. And even looking at someone like you and like, wow, you could just write a caption in 15 seconds and it would be better than one I wrote. That would take me 8 hours to write. And so learning about myself and exploring that, like you can do self-discovery in a lot of different ways, right? It doesn't have to be through these like, tests and categories. That's just what I've found to be helpful. But I think the takeaway is really like figure out where you are at, like what are your strengths, what works for you, and then when you figure out what those weaknesses are, it's like targeting those and finding ways to make those easier, or finding people that can help you with those, right? So I think it really boils down to like the first thing you have to do is like let go of the shame around it and let yourself be bad at things. Like that's okay. We always talk about this in the Social Business Club where I'm like, embarrassment is the cost of entry, guys. Like if you're not embarrassed, you're not doing enough. You are not growing enough. If you're not scared, you need to be pushing yourself more. So it's just part of it, right? Like accepting that from the beginning.
Well, it's funny because, like, you made this joke about captions, but I'm the same with graphics. Like, this is why we're Batman and Robin, is that, like, if I'm asked to make a graphic, it's always crooked. Like, we still have a few clients that sometimes I'll, like, pop in and do stuff for, and it's like, I'll be like, Maria, it's Easter Monday, and, like, I need you to make this graphic because I just can't do it. But it's, like,
And then 3 minutes later, I've sent you the graphic.
Yeah,
and it's like so easy, and I didn't think twice about it.
And she's Da Vinci. Like, it's like, yeah, like, it's like insane. But, you know, I think that's also another piece too, is like not being good at everything and like knowing when you're not good at something. But there's just also things in business that like we sometimes put this label of like we're not good at that instead of actually like trying to get better. It's not like you're out there taking like caption writing courses, or I'm not out there like doing graphic design courses because I'm desperate to learn. I've just kind of been like, that's not really my skill set. And like I add value in other ways in the business, and actually makes more sense for me to just double down and, you know, build more relationships or double down and do other things with our team or whatever. In the same way, it doesn't make sense for you to go do a caption writing workshop. But I think there's also things in business sometimes we just have to do.
So true.
And so it's like, it's also like, how can you build the muscle to do it? But you don't have to have the muscles for everything. So it's like knowing the things that are like impactful, so that this way, when it's time, you're like, okay, like, yeah, like I need this.
Yeah. And this is something I feel like you and I have spent so much time just having conversation around, because I think it is a nuanced decision when you're trying to decide, like, is this something I'm just inherently, does it fall into the, you know, that diagram with like the 4 corners that's like, what are you good at? What do you actually like doing?
Yeah.
And then like, so the things that fall in, you're bad at it and you don't like it. Are there things in that category that you can just like kind of let go by the wayside and find another solution for? And then are there things in that category, like in my mind, there's always going to be both, where you actually need to push yourself to progress, right? So for me, like caption writing, you know, I'm not the worst. Like I can write a cap. It could be, you know, a 5 out of 10. Like it could pass, right? And also, I can outsource that. I can use AI. I can get someone on our team. Like, there's so many other solutions for it. So, like, am I taking a caption writing workshop? No. But something like public speaking, I had a huge fear at the beginning. And you guys know this if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. I was, like, stuttering on my first few podcasts and, like, so nervous and, like, just couldn't do it. But it was an area that I saw where I'm like, I can't really outsource that. It's important to the business that I show up in that way. And so did I get on a stage in front of 1,000 people? No. But I knew that that was something that I couldn't just get around, like outsource and kind of leave to be like, oh, I'm not good at that. I can't, I'm afraid of public speaking. I'm not good at it. Not going to do it. Right. Like I just had to slowly push myself to do more and more and get better at it, because it's something that like the business needs.
Yeah, and you've done such a good job with that, right?
Thanks.
Where it's been like we've run small events and then we run bigger events, and you also like know your boundaries on stuff, right? Like I've used this example in the podcast before, but I've been podcasting almost, you know, it's gonna come up on 3 years this July, which has been
congrats.
So fun. But like the first few podcasts we did together, you would be like, okay, like send me prep notes. Like, let me know what you're going to ask me. And I'd be like, oh, Maria, like, that's not really my style. Like, and you'd kind of be like, yeah, but like, I'm going to be anxious. Like, and like, that's worse. Like, you know, and so us kind of coming in this middle ground where today I'm kind of like, okay, Ben gave us a few topics. I like these two. And the other one we're going to talk about, you were kind of like, I don't really know about that one, but like, let's figure it out kind of thing. Like, it's such a different mindset, but it took time for you to kind of get out of your own way on like knowing how much value you add. And so I think that's something that's such a, like a good learning, is that sometimes we're just so like, oh, like I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not good at that, like, so I'm not going to go on that podcast or whatever. But it is, embarrassment is the cost of entry. And like when I look back on my first few episodes as an interviewer, I'm like, oh, like I actually don't think I interviewed that well. And then now I look back and it's like almost everyone I interview at the end is like, you're a great interview. Like those were great questions. And it's like, because I know how to ask different questions now, and I know like what I want to hear and like how I want to lead people. And so I think it's just really about knowing that like, yeah, it's like about getting out of your own way, is so much of that is just about like that like commitment to like continuing to try.
Yeah. And I think too, when you're looking at someone, like let's say you're looking at an excellent interviewer who's like Chris Harder, who's been, you know, at this for a long time, so incredible, has a massive following, is like thriving. Maybe it's a better example if I'm looking at him. But I could so easily give myself the out of like, oh, I'm not like that. I can't, you know, I can't just get there and come up with questions and, you know, rhyme them off and ask people, and like, I'm not good at speaking. I can't show up this way. Like all the excuses that start to play in your mind, right? But like, I'm looking at his year 10, not his day 1.
Absolutely.
And so I always mention this on stage at High Five Women, because people are like, wow, you're so like confident. You're like this and that. And I'm like, no, guys, I'm actually so anxious. And like, I hate public speaking, and I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone like so hard right now. And I need you to know that, because it means it's possible for you too.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to look at me and be like, oh, she's so great at public speaking. I could never do that. And they've said that to me. And I'm like, you can. Because this is not where I started. And like, if you just slowly push yourself into that, don't compare your day 1 with somebody else's, you know, day 3,000.
100%. Well, even like in this episode, the Diary of a CEO episode that I sent you, and Ben and I actually referenced in the episode we just did, like it was actually really interesting listening to him talk about how like people don't want to start podcasts because people are like, oh, like look at Diary of a CEO, look at Lori Harder, like look at all these people, and then you're like, I'm not going to start because like, I'm never going to be there. And it's like, imagine if those people just were like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to do it because I'm never going to be there. And it's like a lot of the successful podcasts we're seeing are the people who've been at it for a long time. And that's such a good indicator of like what's to come if you're consistent. And so I think that's really important to remember too. Like when you're building these things, it's like a lot of these things are not like build it and they will come. A lot of these things take a lot of consistency. They take time. It's like growing your audience, growing anything takes a lot of time that we're sometimes not used to, and we want more instant results. And if we don't get the results immediately, we're like, well, this is bad. And I think it's just remembering that it's not bad and that it's like kind of like everything's kind of for us.
Yeah.
And being able to really, try to get out of our own way as much as possible is so important.
Yeah. And I think like just remember you're limitless. Like you can do anything you set your mind to. And so when you're telling yourself these stories of I'm not good at this, I can't do this, like it becomes true because you're telling yourself that. So if you change the way you think about it and change your mindset around it of I can grow, I'm just starting, this is going to be hard at first, this is going to be embarrassing. Like you kind of need to change your inner thoughts and the stories you're telling yourself around it. And then, another thing that's been so helpful for me, like you mentioned, is setting your own boundaries about what that looks like for you, right? Yeah. Like if you, like I said, if you have an insane fear of public speaking, don't go sign up to speak in front of, and do a keynote in front of 10,000 people. Maybe go on a podcast that's on Zoom first, or like, just start small, record an Instagram story of you talking, like take those baby steps. That's what I think people don't often like see even as an option is like, oh, I need to just jump right to the end goal. You can start small and like inch your way up and then set boundaries like I did with you of like, what do I need to be okay to actually do this and like push myself fully out of my comfort zone. Yeah, I love that. Do you have any tips for anybody if they're like, need to get out of their own way or they have like something that they're really excited about and scares them even? Because sometimes those things are the same things, right? Where we're like really excited. I feel this with events. Like I love going to events. I'm always scared before I go. Like, especially like tomorrow I'm going to New York by myself and I'm like literally 1 hour away. I live by flight and I'm like, there's going to be so many people there I don't know, which is so exciting for our business, but also like always just a little bit like nerve-wracking for me. So what would you say to somebody who is like having trouble getting out of their own way, and what tips do you have? I have so many tips.
I know you do.
Okay. I feel like we've already, covered a few, which is like one, self-discovery, learn more about yourself, and also the stories you're telling yourself, and are they true? Like your thoughts, you can choose, do you believe that or not, right? And then like actually just reprogram your thoughts. I think that's a huge one. Surround yourself with people who make it easier. We kind of touched on that a little bit. I think we can dive in a bit more. And then I feel like the one we've already covered too is like baby steps for me and like setting boundaries and making those steps easier. And I think you really have to like become friends with fear. But instead of like being in the passenger seat and fear's driving and you're like, I'm so anxious, I have no idea what's happening, I can't do this, whatever. It's like get in the driver's seat, get fear in the passenger seat, hold its hand, and just remember that like you're in charge and you're in control and it is probably going to be there. Yeah. And like that's okay, right? And that's the case for everybody, even the people you look up to. So I think that's an important point. But honestly, the person, like the thing that's helped me the most with all of this is you. Like, love ya. Love you. But I think you need to surround yourself with people who help you get out of your own way. Yesterday you forced me on the highway, so I understand that as well. No, I feel the same way. I think it's like really one of those things where, we always joke about how we're like, the perfect pair of all time. Like we're married. Best duo of all time.
Yeah. I'm like, sorry, Josh.
Sorry, I did have to take that off our website. But.
Yeah. I know. I wrote on our website, the first time I wrote our copy, I wrote like, best duo of all time, Batman and Robin. She's like, should we have that on there? I was like, it's not going anywhere. Then she took over the website. It's gone. But like, I think that's why, like, a lot of people ask us about business partners often. They're like, should I have a business partner? Like, what do you think about a business partner? And I'm always like, don't do it. And then people are like,
hey.
Oh. But they're like, you hate her. And I was like, no, like, you need to be somebody who can be challenged. And you and I are both women that can be challenged.
Yeah.
That like, we're both people who are like, I disagree with that. And like, I don't like the way that you said that, or I don't like the way that played out. And we're like in this season of business that's like very transitional right now. And like, life stuff, like business stuff, like lots of stuff's happening. And we're making a lot of choices fast. And we have to be okay with each other saying like, I'm actually not going to be okay if you do it like that. And like, I'm not going to be okay if you go on mat leave and it looks like this. And I'm not, and that's just being really honest. Right. And I think if you can't be really honest with somebody and like you don't think that you guys can have like the most authentic relationship where like when things get hard you have each other's backs, don't have a business partner. Like literally just do this by yourself. Like, I'm just telling you, you will not get anywhere as far. But I think that there's just really like a lot of power and like magic in the thing that we've built together. But I do think that a big piece of it is just that like we talk about these things a lot, where it's like when we're setting up an event or something like that and you're like, I'm nervous about these things. And so when we go up there, I'm going to tell people where the bathroom is, and I'm going to tell people this, this, and this, and then you fill in the blanks. And that's a really good comfort zone for me. And then there's times where I get an audio note from someone, and I'm like, oh my God, this audio note is making me so anxious. Can you listen to it and summarize it for me? And you're like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, so we are always kind of like working together on like trying to figure out how to like play to each other's strengths and weaknesses, but also not in a debilitating way. And I think that's the difference, is that a lot of the times, like when you surround yourself with people, like a lot of people like to surround themselves around yes people. Yeah. Like people who will just do anything they say or whatever. And I think you and I are not yes people. And so we're both just kind of like working together to try to find a way to like help each other be the best versions of ourselves in the way we want it to look like. Because there's also things that I'm scared of that I don't want to do. Like I don't want to go bungee jumping. I'm not, that's not fear. I just don't want to do it. Right. But like in business, there's things that you can be scared of and you still have to do. And I think you and I are trying to find the balance of like, not like I'm bad at that, so my business partner is going to do it, but like I'm going to grow these skills to this point and I'm going to be able to do it. Yeah. So good. So good. What do you think, like, if somebody was listening to this and they're like in a season of extreme transition and they don't know, what's next for themselves, or they're like, they have this vision, they can't see like, the next steps. How would you get them to surround themselves around people who are like-minded? Yeah, I think first you have to set the intention of like, who do you want to be surrounded by? So for me, it's people who like can see my potential even more than I can see it, who bring out the best in me, who inspire me to be better, who are like expanders for me, right? Yeah. And I love that word, by the way. I love, like, that's like a newer thing, I think, in business that people were calling people expanders, but like... Yeah, tell us, what does it mean? Well, it's just like, sorry, I didn't mean to turn to it. No, give us the definition. I think that's a good point. Yeah, it's just something that comes up for me a lot, where it's like somebody who you look at and you're like, oh my God, like that's expansive what they're doing. And instead of looking at them and being like, I'm so jealous of what they're doing, it's like expansive for your thought of what's possible. So even like my friend from the Elite Mastermind, Liz Moody, who's amazing. She's like a top 10 health podcast. I was pregnant at the Elite Mastermind, and I had told a few people because I was vomiting. And I went to LA for the night, one of the nights. And I came back and she's like, you went to LA? And I was like, yeah, there was this event. So, and since I was here, I might as well. It's a company I invest in, whatever. And she's like, that is so expansive for me, because when I think of women in their first trimester, I think of them in bed, which, like, be in bed, girls. But like, I think of them in bed. I'm scared of being like, and this is something she talks about publicly, but like, I'm scared of being a mom or pregnant because like I'm nervous that it would be like debilitating to my career. And so that was super expansive to actually see you be able to like go out and do something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's my norm. I didn't know that I probably should relax. Now I know that I should have relaxed. But, like, it's just interesting, like, that people can expand you and make you think about things differently. Yeah, it's so good. I love the term expanders, too. Like, I think that's so powerful. So I think that could be, like, a larger group of people who you're sort of around to inspire you, like business friends. That's really great. And then I think there's, like, a kind of closer knit circle who are like your go-to people who, when you're like super anxious and crying and like need help with something, you're calling them and they're talking you through it. And for those people, I think setting the intention, at least for me, it's like that person not only needs to be able to see my potential and believe in me and all that stuff, but they also need to, and I think this is what we do so well, have an open and honest conversation about it, instead of just being like, oh, you're scared of public speaking? Just get on this podcast. You have to just do it. Yeah. Like, like the tough love approach. That does not work for me. So it simply does not. I shut down. Avoidant attachment style coming out real strong there. So she'll never speak to you again. Yeah, sorry. Changing my phone number. So I think for me, it's like that needs to be able to be a conversation.
like with us where I'm like, hey, I'm so scared to do this. I like really don't want to. And then your question back is like, what would make it less scary? What would make it easier? What's a way we could do it differently where you'd be more comfortable? So I'm still pushing myself, and you know, these people are still inspiring me to be greater, but it's like they also let me do it in a way that makes sense for me and allows me to actually do it and show up. So I think setting those intentions of what you're actually looking for is really important. And then just like get out there. Like, you know, come to a Have I Women event, join your Chamber of Commerce, like just go on Facebook events and like scroll through what's happening in your city. Like go in a free Facebook group and post, hey, I'm like just start putting it out there.
Go for a coffee chat with somebody. Organize a local meetup. Like it doesn't have to be huge. I think that's such a good point, Maria, because I think when we think about goals and those like expansive, scary goals, we think we need those things now. But sometimes there's so many steps before that point where like you could like start some of those conversations. Like I don't love meeting new people one-on-one. Like it like actually is a bit anxiety provoking for me. And so I like bigger groups and then I can talk to people one-on-one all day. But I love like I have a lot of dread when I go on a one-on-one call and I've never met the person. So like what can I do to make that easier? Okay, I go to larger events or I try to do a bit of research about the person before we get on so I know what to ask about. Like things to set yourself up for success.
Yeah, you can even like cold DM people. Like our photographer, that Avalon that we work with for all of our High Five Women events, like cold DM'd us one day and was like, hey, can I come like to one of your events and shoot it? We're like, sure. And now honestly, she's like one of my closest business friends.
Yeah.
And she inspires me so much. And we have the best conversations. So I think it's setting the intention, keeping an open mind of like where these people might come from. Like it could be someone you just like, you're getting coffee at your co-working space and you run into them, or, you know, you go to an event and you're like in line for the bathroom. Like they can kind of pop up anywhere, but I think you just got to push yourself into situations where you're going to meet people. And then trust your intuition on like who feels like they resonate with you and who feels like they could become like a close friend. But
totally,
we didn't have like any business friends, guys. Our parents are not in business. We're entrepreneurs. I knew like maybe a few entrepreneurs when we started. Like we didn't go to school for business, and like the way we did it is all through events, masterminds, getting in rooms.
Yeah,
just getting in the room.
To.
Yeah.
Choosing to like learn and get to know people, right?
And then following up with those people, like connecting with them after, building that relationship, texting with them, like putting in the effort to actually continue that.
Yeah. No, I love it. So everyone, if you have something on your heart, I think Maria gave some great tips on how to get out of your own way.
Thanks.
And this is something that we're all going to be continuing to talk about. We think mindset is just so important. And we have some cool stuff coming up the pipeline soon about mindset and social media, just because we know how much of a big difference this makes. And like getting out of your own way, we're not just talking about like, oh, like I don't like this or I don't like that. Like this is like making your first post. This is like, you know, Ben and I just talked about this in our LinkedIn episode, like that first post on LinkedIn. It's like, what are you going to post about? Like, do something. Just get started. Like, say something. It's like, the only way to get to is through. And so, thanks, Mara. I'm so excited to see what breakthroughs people have. And if you, like, this resonated with you, if you have any thoughts about it, feel free to send us a DM and let us know how you're going to get out of your own way today.
Whee!
So
have fun.